right, we're going to talk about some shaping issues for the upper shoulder here. This is a very slight round back, or maybe you see some armhole gaping right here. And this is a 50% dress form size. So obviously this would be much more significant in a life size. I have seam allowance here at the shoulder, and you can see that, you know, everything else is kind of hitting where you want it to, but you have this little armhole gape, and you're going to see this when your sleeve is off or if it's a sleeveless garment. It's a very slight little adjustment. You can do this on non-stretch or stretch fabrics, and men, women, it doesn't matter what you're going to do this on. There's two options in order to fix this little slight little armhole gape thing. One is adding a shoulder dart. Darts are very underrated for the shoulder. You don't see them a lot on current garments right now, but they're really excellent for shaping if you have some upper back shaping issues. And we just want to slide that excess right up there at the shoulder, right? We're just going to slide it up there like this. And it's going to naturally want to create a little dart right there. And now you can see we're missing that bit at the shoulder. We'd have to fill that in once we added this dart, because this is adding shape. So yes, we've shortened our shoulder seam and we're adding it back, but we're not going to be adding to this shape issue since we have the dart in here. Now, another option that you can do is add a little to your outer shoulder, you know, just kind of that amount that you see missing right there, and then ease the shoulder into the front shoulder seam. This way the garment will sort of cup the shoulder up here, and you haven't added a dart. It's going to be a little bit looser, but it's not going to be that noticeable. And I'm not saying gather it so much that you see tucks or full-on gathers, just a little easing stitch in there right inside your seam allowance. Pull it gently right before you get those tucks to when it will match the front shoulder seam, and sew it together. So I'm going to show both of those changes to you right now. We're going to mark our dart amount first, and then we'll take that and change the pattern piece. All right, let's deal with that little tiny armhole gape. This is just a slight round adjustment for a back. So we need to note the depth of our dart that we created here. So I like to slip my ruler in here. I'm going to slide my pin down just a little bit, keeping that fold nice and secure, and make sure you flatten this out and get it nice and secure all the way to the shoulder here. And I'm going to slip my ruler in there and note that amount. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a shoulder dart right here. So we're going to fold our shoulder here. We need to know where the position of the dart needs to be. And if you know where you want that, you can put this anywhere you want. But if you don't quite know where to position this, you want to fold your shoulder just like this. Line up your cut edges, crease it. And usually this dart's going to point down here to this one here. Picture a princess seam. So if we were to draw a nice line, you know, that if we were to do a princess seam, it would connect like this, right? Or like this. So we'd have this piece and we'd have this piece right there. All right, so now let's draw a line in our crease like that. So now for the length of your dart, you usually, a shoulder dart's about 2.5 to 3 inches long. It just depends. If you want this dart to be a lot longer because maybe your prominence is lower, or you want it shorter because your prominence of your back is higher, you can do that. All right, and I'm going to put mine right here, and that's going to be your vanishing point of the dart. All right, and now on your seam line, not on your cut edge, but on your seam line here, I want you to mark that amount that you measured on either side of this line, right on the seam line itself. Now we're going to connect the dots. We're going to go from the vanishing point through each leg all the way to the cut edge, just like that. Same thing here, like that. All right, and now we have our vanishing point right there of our dart. Okay, so let's reshape our shoulder and our armhole here. We're trying to make this so that we don't have to affect our sleeve. And once we have this dart in here and it's sewn, our shoulder will not match to our front, right? So we need to make sure that we add that missing amount there. So remember that amount of your dart. You want the total amount from leg to leg. And we're going to make our shoulder adjustment first. This is important. So don't tape this piece of paper here quite yet. We're going to take the armhole and slide it all the way over to the right of your wedge of paper and trace your armhole on here. Just this little bit here. You need your shoulder and a bit of your armhole. So now we're going to pivot our shirt over, keep this armhole shape so we don't affect our sleeve at all. So I'm going to hold my armhole right there on the seam line, and I'm going to pivot it over just like this. And you can see there's my tracing. And we're going to measure here that dart amount. So I'm going to look for that amount, and look at, I'm measuring on the seam line. So all the way from here to here. So I'm just going to push my ruler over like this until it's where I want. Be really careful. Hold this all in place. Tape it down just like that. And now we have our same armhole length, but you can tell we have this crazy angle right here. So we're going to fix that next. We also needed our little bit of shaping for our dart anyway. So let's tape another piece of paper here. And make sure you tape this one down on the back because it'll be probably a really small sliver and you don't want to lose it once you've added it. All right, so now we're gonna sew our dart. Now when we're sewing darts at the neck or shoulder, we always go away from the center. So we're gonna go away from center back. So we're gonna fold on this line. Don't go past the vanishing point. So just fold all the way like this. And now this part's a little fiddly. We're going to hold this little folded edge and pull it over to the dart. Now I usually try and match it on the shoulder first, and then I straighten this out and I kind of pull it. I'm pulling like this with my hand and making sure I'm not folding my dart past this vanishing point because you don't want to distort it at all. And don't over fold your dart either. All right, so now I have my dart in there, and I'm going to take a little piece of removable tape. You can also staple this if you don't have any removable tape, like that. And you can see we have quite a divot right here, plus we have this little shoulder shape here. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to draw my seam line on this new shoulder point here, just like this. So I'm going to draw my seam allowance on the shoulder and the armhole right there, and I'm going to connect this dot to that dot over there. Always working on your seam line. Just like this, all the way, like that. And now we're going to add our seam allowance to that line we just drew. So whatever your seam allowance was. Make sure you keep track of which line is your new line. And then I can blend this little shoulder line here. I know, see this right here, I'm going to line up my ruler to this line right here. That was when I first traced on my little scrap of paper before I pivoted. Yes, I know it's a little lower here, but that's okay. It's in the seam allowance. We're only concerned with our seam line. Doesn't matter what happens past that. All right, so now we have our full shoulder here, and we're going to trim all this excess off. Like this. And then this is also going to shape our dart. Like that. So we've added all of this here because we have the dart. Let's lift up our removable tape, open it up, and now you can see our dart shape, and we've kept our shoulder line and our armhole the same. So now we can safely sew this to the front, and all of our seams are going to match. Our sleeve will still sew to this armhole, and now you have this nice little shape here for your upper shoulder, and it'll cinch this armhole so you won't have the gape anymore. There you go. And so last thing we should do, take your dart leg, go all the way through to the cut edge of your paper there. And then those are your notches, just like that. You have your new vanishing point and your new notches. Now, if you really don't want to put a dart on this little armhole gape one, you can do one other thing. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to add a row of stitches just inside the seam line, and just a long enough stitch length that you can pull the stitches and draw up the seam a little bit. We don't really want gathers or tucks. We just want a little line of stitches. All right, so I have my little row of stitches here, and we're going to gently pull on them. Just enough to where it starts gathering up, just like that. And you can see that this will add a little bit of shaping there. You can kind of see it's already kind of gently rounded around the shoulder there. As long as you don't get any tucks in the seam, this will barely be perceptible. No one will even notice this, and your shoulder is going to fill this out, so no one's going to really notice the looseness on you like we're seeing it here. So let me show you how to adjust the pattern. Now, because we're going to be gathering this up a little bit, we still need to add to the shoulder edge just like we do on the darted version, because once this is smaller, it won't sew to the front seam. It won't sew to the front because it's going to be shorter. So you need to figure out exactly how much you need to pinch out of this to get rid of the gape, just like you do for the dart. And that amount, instead of adding it as a dart, we're going to just add it to this extra here. So whatever you pinched out for your dart, we're going to add to the shoulder here. So we're going to trace the shoulder, take a piece of paper that's a little wider than what you want to add there, and trace your armhole to the right of the paper, like way over here. And just do a little bit of the shoulder and most of the armhole, just like that. And now I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to also take my awl just so that my hands aren't in the way so you can see. And I'm going to put it kind of low down here in the armhole because I think that that's how long it would take me to blend in this amount if I just had taped it to the edge here and had to blend it in and make it nice. So right about here, and we're not changing the armhole amount, right? So the sleeve is still going to sew to this. You can see right here, as long as we stick to this point and we don't move it anywhere. So now I'm using my ruler, and I'm going to line up along the seam line here, right here. I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to put my ruler, the amount of my dart in. So my dart is a 1/2 inch, so I have a 1/2 inch from here to here. And now I'm going to pull this over, and when my seam line, this seam line right here, touches the ruler, I know that I've added the right amount there. And so now I can tape this down. And I would tape on the back because this might give you a little sliver and you don't want to lose it, just like that. So now we just need to put in, we need our seam allowance on this edge here and here just so we can reshape the shoulder a little bit. So now we have that point, and we're going to go from that point to the neck point, just like this, connect the dots. And we might need a little bit of paper along this upper shoulder here too, towards the neck. And now we're going to draw back our seam allowance back in parallel to our new line, just like that. And so we've added this little tiny bit and this little bit here, and now our shoulder will still match the front if we ease it in just like this. And so we just trim this away. You know, once you've trimmed it away just like that, you have an armhole that still sews to your sleeve and sews to your front once you ease it in there. No one's going to see that easing. It'll be really nice too. It'll fit really good. So make sure that your front, when you line it up on the seam line here, is a nice smooth transition right here. You don't want a point or a divot right there. And then you're set to go, and you can just ease your shoulder and just make sure you write some notes there so you don't forget to ease it in. I hope you're enjoying my Fitopedia fitting series, and if you want to get more fitting tutorials, just check the description. There's going to be links to more. And if you would like a printed version of these mini tutorials, just check the description or look under the video, and eventually you'll be able to make your own little Fitopedia booklet. And it'll be a really great, quick, easy reference to how to diagnose and fit the issue that you're working on. So I hope you're getting a lot out of the series. Please let me know, like, comment, and subscribe, and follow along for more. Thanks for watching.